I generated $500,000 in revenue for my video editing agency using only $11 per hour remote workers in Indonesia. Here's the proof. There's only one way to hire export remote talent that will help you scale profitably in 2024. Remote talent with years of experience that's 70% cheaper than US-based fresh graduates. I've used this hiring method to scale my agency and place talent to Fortune 500 companies and also Hollywood producers. I'll break it down into 5 key points so that you can do this hiring process yourself and save hundreds and thousands of dollars. Let's dive into it. The first step is where most agencies or marketing teams get it wrong. It's knowing who to hire and where to hire them from. So let me just pull up this Miro board here and I'm going to show you the differences between the types of remote talent. So first of all, you need to understand who you're hiring for, right? Because there are 4 different types of remote talent. You have freelancers, virtual assistants, and these 2 full-time roles. Now, the difference between these are there are full-time in-house employees working remotely. What that means is these are people that are legally hired for the company, let's say a company in London, and then they have a foreign citizen working in their company in-house. This usually involves a visa process, an application process, and just different legal stuff that a lot of like the people watching this video, marketing teams, etc., you won't primarily need, because I will definitely recommend the 4th type, which is full-time remote independent contractor. So you can mimic what you would get from a full-time in-house employee with a visa and everything, but these are just independent contractors. So they're contractually obligated to work with you for a certain amount of time, right? So how do you determine which talent to actually hire, right? And I'm going to jump right into that right now before I get into the different places you can hire these types of talent. So this is how you map out what you need. This is typically the work and talent I typically see they are matched together. So easy and short-term work. So for example, I used a freelancer just the other day from Bangladesh to set up my conversions API because it involved a lot of code, blah, 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 from Facebook. And I hired a freelancer to do one-off projects. So projects like that are short-term and just like one-off builds, I would definitely recommend a freelancer. Even for difficult tasks, like let's say something like build a web agency, you can build a web development project or like a website, you can definitely build or find a really, really good freelancer to take care of this, even though it's difficult. But it's a one-time build and it's short-term work. I would definitely recommend you going to Upwork for more difficult tasks because they actually vet their freelancers more. And then you have easy and long-term work. So I'm pretty sure you're familiar with the term virtual assistants. These are usually from the Philippines or Southeast Asia. They are more generalists, right? So as you can see here, they know their way around several skills. So there's a difference between hiring a creative VA and hiring a video editor. A creative VA can do video editing, graphic design, illustration, just a bit. They're like a jack of all trades. Whereas like a video editor, he can only do probably video editor and animation, but he can do so like really, really well. So it really depends on what you need. If you're going for like a cheap option, then VAs might be the choice. And that's why if you're looking for easy tasks and long-term work, then you should hire a virtual assistant. But if you're looking for more expertise and long-term work as well, then I would recommend full-time independent contractors, right? Which can mimic how a full-time in-house employee would work, but just with less cost, and you actually get the same level or even higher quality output, right? So that's where you would kind of like categorize it. And let me go back to this Miro board over here. If you can see here, there are 4 types there that I've explained. And freelancers usually go to Fiverr or Upwork. Virtual assistants, usually you can get them through VA groups. There's loads on Facebook, and also VA agencies as well. So agencies that help place VAs to companies and take commission from it. So you can find these 2 nails or 2 freelancers in these 2 buckets. And then for full-time in-house employees working remotely, where you need to sponsor their visa, etc., they usually have their own hiring process. So if you're like a marketing agency that's probably doing under $1 million a month, this is not something you should consider, because it's better to hire from abroad with an independent contractor agreement or a full-time remote independent contractor. And there are 2 ways to do this, which is traditional, where you use your network to kind of hire, and also LinkedIn, which I personally think is the best place to hire. And I'm going to show you the 5 steps to do that exactly after this thing. But I want to illustrate you these 2 images right here. The reason why I use nails is I view remote talent or talent as the bedrock on what holds everything you do together, right? All your clients, all your processes, all your product, service, whatever. With good nails, you would have a strong house. With the wrong type of remote talent, however, you'll get a rundown house like this. Nails all over the place, everything's not intact. It's just a very, very bad house. But with good nails and with good structure, obviously the flooring, the decorations, everything is your service. You need to be really good at delivering your service or your product, but the nails that hold them together are your remote talent. And with the right type of remote talent, you can get a beautiful house like this, right? So how do you exactly hire from LinkedIn? So it's actually really funny that a lot of agencies, especially that not like corporate clients or like corporate Wall Street companies, a lot of like agencies or marketing teams or e-com brands, they tend to overlook LinkedIn for hiring just because it's very associated to very corporate work. Let me tell you right now that this is not the case, especially if you're hiring remotely, right? You'll be getting college graduates to apply to your job post. This is especially effective for US companies because if you post in the right places, they would really, really want to work in your company because not only will you pay them in dollars, which is very, very strong compared to local currency, but they'll have pride of working for a US based company or like a Western company, which is a very big thing here. So these employees as well will cost an $11 per hour if you post the job openings in the right locations. Now, this is what I'm meaning. So this is how you hire from LinkedIn. Step 1, you create a company profile. Step 2, you optimize your own profile. Step 3, you create a job post. Step 4, you get them applying. And step 5 is you boost it if you need more options. So I'm going to dive deeper into each step right now. So step number 1 is optimizing company profile. So you post the job actually. You can do it from your personal account, but I would recommend to have a company profile alongside with it. It's required anyways, because with a strong company profile, you'll increase the quality of candidates that are applying to you. Think of your company profile as the same way as you would acquire clients, the same way you would market your product. You need a strong home base or a strong website to kind of like deliver or tell your prospective candidates what it's like working with you, thus increasing your chances of getting higher quality candidates, just like you would want higher quality customers or clients, right? So you got to fill your page with content. This could be like employee testimonials, work achievements your company has achieved, or corporate social responsibility. All the content on your company profile, this will lead to attracting better talent with actually the same pay. So this is very important because if your company looks like it's not legit, you'll get illegitimate candidates applying. They would actually cost the same as the college graduates I was talking about. So do not underestimate the research in which your candidates will go through before applying to any job, because the smart people, they will research the companies before they actually apply. So that leads me to step 2, because not only will they research the company, they would also research the founder as well. So it's very ideal for you to, as the founder on LinkedIn, to optimize your own profile as well. Have your client testimonials there, have your product testimonials there, have recommendations, have your own content and thought pieces. You know, if you have a podcast, post it on there. Make sure your profile is up to date, post your achievements, because the candidates are not only looking at the company in which they want to believe the vision in, but they want to believe and trust their leader as well, their future or prospective leader. So it's very important for you to showcase this in your own profile. Step 3 is creating a free job post. So posting a job post on LinkedIn is free, but it is limited to only 50 applicants unless you pay. If you can get someone good within the free range of those 50 applicants, then that's totally fine. But set the job post location to either Jakarta, Indonesia or Manila, Philippines, because especially for creative talent or marketing talent, these are the best 2 places I've sourced from. I source from primarily Jakarta, Indonesia, and I've used these talents to serve my Fortune 500 company agencies and clients or my Hollywood producers. So works well. And you can have a job post format that you can steal, somewhere in the link in the description. And these are the best places for you to get talent that can also speak excellent English, which is what you want, right? Step 4, you get the candidates to apply, and then you would want to filter them. It's very important It's the same as speed to lead or speed to customer service. It's very important to have speed to review your candidate's CV and also resume as well. Because remember that high quality candidates are in demand. They usually, according to recruitcrm.com, they actually find a new job in just 10 days. So be sure to quick in reviewing. Use the sorting feature in LinkedIn to categorize the candidates. Yeah, these are the options on LinkedIn Jobs where you can kind of categorize them and see which one's a good fit, ask them for an interview, and which one's not a fit, so that you can send them a rejection letter automatically. And then step 5 is boost with $50 if you haven't found the right candidate. So because it's only limited to 50 applicants, this is how LinkedIn gets you to kind of like pay up. So based on my experience, even just $50 would get you 200 to 300 applicants in total, which is nice if you're looking for more options or the first 50 were duds. But remember, this depends on the type of job you're looking for. Like, for example, a B2B marketing strategist for roofing companies in the US would get less applicants than video editor, right? You get what I mean? So it's very important for you to be sure that you keep this in mind when you boost it with your paid ads in LinkedIn, right? So this is how you would, source from LinkedIn and then know who to hire and where to hire them from. Now you've got qualified candidates applying to your company. Awesome. But this next step is where a lot of agencies and marketing teams tend to skip. And even if they do it wrong. You can't just rely on CVs and resumes. You need to test their skills. So there's a shocking stat that says 80% of candidates actually lie on their CVs and resumes. So how do we counteract this, especially for, talent in, remote countries where you don't even know if they're lying or not? So this is how you do it. Imagine a candidate's portfolio, if they're a creative, and a CV and resume as brochures, right? Say you're buying a car, right? Before you buy a car, what do you see? You see the brochure, you see the specifications of the car. What horsepower does it have? What's the fuel type, et cetera, et cetera. So think of the portfolio as the type of car that you're choosing, right? And then the type of specs you're seeing, and then the CV and resume as the specs of that car, the portfolio as the different skills or different specs of that car. So you can kind of see both options. And think of a skill test as a test drive. So before you want to buy that car and commit a lot of money, and you will commit a lot of money when hiring anyone, you test drive the car. And you do this by having a skill test, right? And getting candidates to do a skill test is actually pretty easy. And designing a skill test, it's easy if you know the correct methodologies to it. And this is what I'm going to show you right now on this video. The methodologies I'm going to show you, it's been used to place talent to Fortune 500 companies. So it filters out the liars really well, right? So skill tests, especially for creatives. So skill tests can be done for any role, but it's very especially important for creative roles. So there are two kind of like ways to test it, which I really recommend, which is built on a similar logic and methodology. The first one is a speed test. So we want to test how the creatives do in a tight deadline, a 3-hour turnaround time. One, can you create a skill test that can actually be realistically done in 3 hours by a competent creative? And then you kind of want to see in 3 hours which one does he what parts of the creative does he prioritize and how does he do it, right? So for this one, you would want them to record an OBS recording or even a Loom video of them creating the project from scratch, because we want them to create the project from scratch and then recording that and then sending it through to you to check whether they actually created from scratch, they used the template, or they just stole someone else's work. So really important to test their honesty and their speed. The second part is the quality test. So given enough time, which is a 24 to 48 hour turnaround time, depending on what role you're hiring for, we want to see how high their quality of work can be. So this is very important if you want to see, okay, given enough time, what kind of details will this creative actually produce? And this is how you would want to test it, right? So I'm going to give you an example of the one I have for video editors. Again, if you want any of this, it's all in the link in the description below. If it's not this specific document, the document or any documents I have, any tutorials and trainings I have, in the bottom, you'll have links to all the other trainings. So if you want that, grab that. But let's look at this right here. So this is the same thing. So this deadline it changes depending on the videos. So for UI UX, for example, I have this for 48 hours and I have this for 6 hours because it's just more logistically difficult compared to videos, right? So you need to kind of understand that as well. So you would want to evaluate the results based on attention to detail, adaptability, punctuality. So you would do something like this. So for the speed test, I have my editors actually produce an IG reel, right? Which is 1 minute size, a short form video. And I already gave them the footage. I already gave them the audio. I even already gave them the fonts, right? So if you want to look at this, let's have a preview over here. Here we go. So this is just me. This is me or my client. Oh, it's my client. My past client. So this is just a pure raw footage. As you can see, there's a bit of blinker there. There's no like color grading. This is up to the candidate to kind of like get this done. So if they were competent, they don't need to be told to, fix the color grading, fix the flicker, that type of stuff. So you don't forget to give references as well. I give Hormozy as a reference, and I also give a lot of other references as well. So this is based on what you need. And then I also give them screenshots of testimonials. So in that video, my client would say, David produced 100K in 30 months and 30 days using my dropshipping method. So the candidate would need to be able to go into the folder and find which one's David and which one holds the right number, right? And then please use as many creatives and make sure that it's copyright free, and only use the proper part based on the used footage. So can't really have too many B-rolls. And then you have the deadline here, and then you would put something like, I didn't add it here because I don't want to give away my HR email, but you would put something like, please send result to blah, 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 blah at coolcreatives or fullfine.com, right? So you would want to say that. And that is for the speed test of it. For the quality test for video editors, I do long form videos. So for this one, I give the footage. Again, it's the same thing. It's a talking head for me. Really depends. If you're e-commerce, you would want to do UGC footage. If you are a real estate company, you would want them to create like a show reel of all your latest property listing. So really depends on who you need. And then what they're going to do in your day-to-day. So you got to base this skill test based on what your editors will actually be producing in real time. That's very important. So these are some of the instructions: B-roll, add in some animation, introductory animation if needed, include captions. So captions is a great way for you to kind of see what they're like English wise, and see if they spot like little punctuation or spelling mistakes, which is a good way to kind of see which one has meticulousness and which one doesn't. So creative aspects, I give the references as well. And then for this one, it's 24 hours, right? So this one doesn't need a screen recording because in 24 hours, even if they want to use a template or anything, you just want to see what their quality looks like. So that one's not to test pressure, it's to test quality. The first one is to test pressure, right? So do these two tests, and I guarantee you're going to weave out the people. I've had so many instances where the CV and portfolio looked absolutely gorgeous, but when it comes to the skill test, they can't do anything. Because what tends to happen was in the previous companies, these candidates were actually part of the project. They didn't create the project themselves. They didn't create the videos themselves. They didn't create the website themselves. They were part of a team that created the end product, but they put the whole end product as their portfolio. Does that make sense? So you would want to test this because you want to make sure, even if you give them a whole task alone, what would that look like? What would the end result be? Okay. So that's how you do skill tests. Now, you can get the most skilled candidates in the world, but if their personality and character doesn't fit into your companies, then they won't be a good employee. All companies do interviews, but most of them get it wrong, especially for remote talent. These interview questions that I'm about to show you were made and evaluated by a Fortune 500 HR consultant that oversees operations in Southeast Asia. Wrong interview questions will lead to wrong judgment. When you judge a candidate based on faulty questions, you'll hire someone that you thought you weren't hiring, right? So a bad hire can cost companies 30% in their employees' first year salary. And a good effective process, on the other hand, for interviews, improve retention rates by 36% and actually increase productivity by 2.5x because you're hiring the right people, right? So imagine interview questions as pieces of the puzzle, right? You would want to paint a picture of what your candidate actually is. So their personality, characters, and skills. And then each interview question is a piece of the puzzle that you need to put in their place to get the full picture, right? So I'm going to show you how to actually design an interview structure, which I've used to place talent to Fortune 500 agencies. It was also done by a consultant to these Fortune 500 clients, Frank Pons, and seven-figure brands. So category one are HR questions. So this would be, your quick intro, how enthusiastic the candidates are, behavioral questions, team player questions, time management questions, and then problem solving and conflict resolution questions. And then category two would be your technical questions, if especially for creatives or roles that require apps, what apps can they already use, which one did they start with, etc., etc. You can read it here. I'm going to dive deeper into each question after this. And then candidate and job opportunity fit, their working hours, possibility of their join date, and the next steps of the recruitment process. I'm going to move myself over here. Perfect. So for HR questions, you would want something like, can you start by introducing yourself? And you have the ideal answer here, which you can see. And then for enthusiasm, it's questions like, have you researched about this company and what we do, right? Why are you looking for other opportunities like this one? What's wrong with the current job you have or your previous job, right? You want to see, is this the type of person that would jump from company, right? You don't want that. And then strengths and weaknesses, of course. Staple question that you need to ask. There's a reason why it's a staple question. And then where do you see yourself in 5 years? You would want the candidate to answer that he's going to be working in the same industry. He's not going to say he's going to be working at your company, but he's going to say that if he's a video editor, I still want to be the best, or I want to be a better video editor in 5 years, right? And then how would your coworkers describe you? What would you say is your level of English? And then in team player, do you usually work by yourself or with a team? Again, guys, you don't need to screenshot this. I have all these ideal answered and guides and cheat sheets, description link below. How do you build relationships within your team? Tell me from a past experience of yours. Tell me of an experience where you had differing opinions. See how they solve problems. Mediate between client and team. Solve problems. Time management. What is his time management process? How does he structure his deadlines and his tasks, right? When is he most productive? So for a US company, why this question is important is if you're a US company and hiring someone remote and he doesn't want to work US hours, if he works Jakarta hours or Filipino hours, right? And he says he's most productive at night, then perfect, because their night is your morning, right? And problem solving, face biggest challenge, how did they overcome it? Again, all these questions are based on their past experience. The reason being it's very hard to lie about past experience, but it's very easy to yap or to come up with something on the spot about like generic questions like, what do you think is the meaning of teamwork? That's like a bullshit question, right? And then how they would handle feedback if the work is considered subpar by a client, constant revisions, negative feedback, and then device. So what device are you working at? This is really important. A lot of people overlook this. If you're not looking to actually give your remote employees devices, you need to make sure that their devices and the specs are up to work standard, right? Because a lot of them aren't. So you need to make sure of this in the interview process. I actually have a full guide on device specifications based on, the roles you're hiring for. If you want this, again, grab it in the link below. And then internet speed, which is very important. I do recommend download needs to be 50 to 100 Mbps and upload to be 10 to 20 Mbps. You can do so by using speedtest.net or Okla, that type of software. You can do so easily, right? And then you have the candidate and job opportunity fit, working hours, possibility of join date, and then next steps of recruitment. So that's for the two first pillars, HR questions and job fit questions. For technical questions, right? Video editors, I separated these into video editors, graphic designers, and UI UX designers because what apps they use differs from role to role. But the questions are all the same. What apps can they use? Which one did they start with? Usually the one they start with is the one they're the best at. But you also ask which one are they the best at? And then you would want to learn how they keep continuously learn. Do they watch YouTube? If so, like, do they enroll in online courses? What social media profiles or reference accounts do they check? That type of stuff. And then what is your creation process like? You would want to see, does he have like a briefing process? Does he have like an ideation phase? Where does he have a way to translate that ideation phase into the building phase, et cetera, et cetera? And then you would want them to walk walk you through a project where they used advanced stuff, and you would want this to be from their portfolio, which is good because you can kind of like verify their portfolio as well. Like, did you actually work for this? Because if they mumble a lot, then that's probably not a project where they completed themselves. They have other divisions. And then how do you ensure the audio quality is high in your projects, etc., etc. Again, I have these, the first few questions are all the same for any creative role, but the rest I do have a bit of difference. Again, if you want it, link in the description. So that is how you would design an interview structure and how you would ask the interview questions and the ideal answers for them. This is very important because you want to paint, again, coming back to this puzzle thing, you would want to create a piece or a puzzle that is complete, right? You would want to create a piece or a puzzle that is complete. All right, awesome. So that's how you do interviews. You've got your employee, congratulations. I've worked with a lot of agencies and marketing teams, and a lot of them underestimate this next step in the process. You need to onboard these remote talents properly. Now, you need a solid onboarding experience for your employees to give off a great impression. Great first impression, higher retention rates. It's the same as if you're an agency, you have clients, you have an onboarding process. Same with candidates. Great first impression, higher retention rate. A well-designed onboarding process actually improves new hire retention by 82% and productivity by over 70%. And this is according to Glassdoor. Most companies either have a makeshift onboarding process that they drew up in like 30 minutes, or they have no onboarding at all. They just, have a call and then, do this. Doesn't work. Especially for remote talent, right? Here's what I want to show you. Let me just make myself smaller here and put myself here on Mars, right? So say you're building a rocket and you want to go to Mars, right? The onboarding design is the whole like technical setup in the beginning, right? You would want to make sure, you have all the design for the rocket to launch, right? The actual onboarding itself is the first throttle when launching to Mars, right? It's the first like big fire, in the beginning, right? So this will ensure that your rocket, which is your remote talent, are sustainable and they're fast, right? So it's really important for you to do this because without a proper onboarding process, there are some accidents throughout human history where the rockets fail to even exit orbit because the throttles or like the initial design and then the initial liftoff was faulty. This is the same with onboarding, right? So you would want to make sure this is set up correctly. Okay, I think I made my point there. So how do you make one? The first one is you need to tie them. Oh, this is wrong number. You need to tie them to a legal contract first. Now, I have law firms in Indonesia that help me create the contracts for me and my clients. So, if you want that template, which is over here, I'm going to show you in this document. Why is it not showing up? Sometimes Loom is a bit faulty, but yeah, we have this document over here, which kind of shows you the legal template made by a lawyer. Again, this is not legal advice. This is not financial advice or anything. This was drafted by a lawyer, as you can see by the language, you'll see. But yeah, you can use this to tie them down to an independent contractor agreement. And again, if you want it, link in the description below. I don't know if you can see the screen, but yeah, I'll continue. And then you have a 6-step onboarding process as well, which is a welcome video. So this is where you would want to run through your company's vision and mission, give them a welcome. It doesn't need to be a call. It can be like a pre-recorded video from your CEO. If you're the CEO, you just sit down and record a welcome video for your employees and outline again the vision and mission of your employees. And then again, tell them what you expect of them in terms of work behavior, right? Number 2 is setting up communication rules and check-ins. So my remote talent has communication rules where, they need to be fast response. They need to be like very responsive during working hours. For me personally, I make it under 1 hour. They need to reply. And then check-ins. So in my agency and my recruiting agency, they need to check in with the client at the beginning of their shift and at the end of their shift to kind of update them. Okay, in the beginning, for today, I'm going to complete this task, right? And then at the end, update, okay, I completed these whole tasks, and then tomorrow I'm going to continue with these tasks, right? So this serves 2 purposes. 1, make it clear to them and to you what they're going to be working on. And 2, it's kind of a way to see whether they're already primed and ready to go according to when you want them to start working, based on the time, right? Because it's pretty different. If you show up to an office at 9, if your office starts at 9 a.m. and then they show up at 10:30 a.m., you can kind of see easily that they're tardy. But if it's a remote thing, then you need systems like this. And then number 3 is digesting SOPs, project management flow, and reference folders. So you would want to create a series of tutorials where they can digest SOPs, and they can have project management flow. They can understand. So if you're using Monday, teach them how to use Monday, where they can find the tasks, where they can find their deadlines, how to communicate, etc., etc. The SOPs, how for their specific role, what type of processes they need to understand. And then reference folders, if you're hiring creatives, you would want them to see what type of creatives you've done before and see whether, these types of creatives can be incorporated by them from the get-go, right? And then number 4 is an onboarding call. So you would want to have this onboarding call. You would want to kind of teach them. So this one actually is optional. So on the call, you can also teach the basics of marketing. This is what I do for my creatives, to kind of give them like the overview of the top of funnel, middle of funnel, bottom funnel, so that they know when they're doing a task, where does it fall in the funnel, right? You can kind of like re-jog their memory. And then onboarding call, of course, you would want to ask them what SOPs they're confused about. Do they know where to find their tasks? Do they know where to find their deadlines, reference folders, etc., etc. And then create a safe space for this. You don't want them to feel intimidated in asking. So make sure to do this onboarding call properly. And then the last step is giving them trial periods. What I mean by trial periods is so for example, for an editor, if you expect them to complete 4 videos per day, don't assume from the first day that they finish their training, they can create those 4 videos. Start with 2 and see if the 2 provides good results. See if the turnaround time is good. Okay, 2 is good. Next day, 3. Next day, 4, etc., etc. So give them a bit of leeway for the first 1 or 2 weeks to get them to get adjusted, and then you would want to ramp up. So that's how you would do the onboarding process. Awesome, you've onboarded them, you made a good first impression, and now your new hire is up to speed. Now, how do you keep the best ones to stay in your company for years to come? Bonuses, that's how. I came up with a bonus system that has made my remote employees stay with me for over 2+ years. I'm going to show you this process in this next part of the video. Now, I want to tell you a story. When I first started my business journey, I thought base pay would be the most important factor, right? So I did a test with my Indonesian employees. An employee with a high base pay with no bonuses, and an employee with a lower base pay but a 10% to 15% bonus based on the performance and output. Employee B outdid employee A on both performance and the duration of stay at my company, right? So both my client satisfaction and then also my employee retention. Employee B was better, right? So during the quarterly performance review, employee B mentioned that the bonuses were a main determining factor in him working harder because he wants to compete, because he wants to get that bonus. So in conclusion, there are 3 things, right? Bonuses motivate remote employees. They also create a bit of competition within your team if you design it the way I design it. And then if you use the point system, it's going to make everything a lot better. So it's very important for you to pay attention to this, because this could be the key to unlocking the productivity of your team without hiring more fixed cost or higher base pay. All right. So think of it like this, an illustration, because I just love giving analogies. Bonus design is the fuel type, right? And then if you put in the correct fuel, so to the car, right? The correct fuel would turn into an F1 Ferrari car. The wrong fuel will get them to break down. So bonus design is very important because you want to create incentives that are aligned to their role and what is considered as a success or as performance, right? Let me show you and dive deeper into the process right now, because it's pretty, not complicated, but it requires a bit of thinking. So bear with me. So the bonus, right, is 10% of the base pay. Let's start with that. 10% of the base pay. And I'm going to show you how I do it with video editors. The reason why I'm going to start with video, because this is actually the most difficult. Anything else is usually performance, which is pretty easy because, for example, an account executive would be how many upsells you did, right? How much upsells did you did? 50K. Okay, you get a 5% commission. There, you get 2.5K. Done. Easy. Video editors, how do you measure them, right? So in my agency and my editors that I place, it's actually based on two things along with the deduction score, right? So it's based on video completion points, which is the amount of video they make, and then client or management ratings, which is what the rating from their management or the client is, right? So you can replace this with, for example, if you're an e-com brand, you can base this on, okay, CTR percentage, for example, right? You can base this off anything, but basically this is output and this is performance. Output, performance, and then the third part is SOP adherence. What does SOP adherence mean? SOP adherence is if they don't run a certain SOP, then you deduct their points. So let me talk about the points, right? So the points are awarded based on these two things, right? And then each editor would want to reach 1,000 points every month to achieve a 10% bonus, right? 1,000 points. So bear that in mind. So this is really important because the first one, for the video completion points, I came up with a system where it distributes evenly between the duration and then also the complexity. Meaning an editor that finishes one very complex video will get the same amount of points as an editor that finishes 20 easy videos. This ensures fairness across all editors, so you have a lot of team that have different degrees of difficulty. This is an example of the points matrix. So these are designed to make sense for them to create videos that reach 500 points, right? So you can just steal this. The way I came up with this is I use 500 points as a starting point, and then I just use the average of how many videos my editors usually complete across the whole company. And then I came up with a 20% better or improved output based on that. Okay. So for example, a 0 to 90 second video of level 1 is worth 1 point, right? Whereas a 10 to 15 minutes video is worth 5 points. What that means is 0 to 90 second videos of a level 1 complexity, which is like, for example, like Hormozi, I'm going to show you below this, is worth, right? Five of these level 1 is worth one of these level 1, which is easy, but they're 15 minutes. You see how that makes sense? It gives a fair distribution, even though it's really hard to quantify the difficulty of videos. How do you do this? You do this by giving references. I'm going to show you. So I just explain how you would do this. So the levels each increase in levels at 1 point, and then each duration at points equivalent to the level number. So how do you determine this is basically 3 things: time required to complete the task, technical complexity, how difficult is this project going to take, and then tools and applications, how many different tools or applications were needed. So the way to come up with this is review past tasks, right? And see how long they take to do. You can kind of see, okay, this one was very difficult. It took 8 days to complete. This will be level 5, for example. So you create a metric in your own company. It's different from company to company. You can steal mine because I've served over 20 niches. So I kind of already gauge the level of difficulty and easiness. But consider the key factors again. So level 1 or level 2, for example, is only adding captions and emojis, and then the tools are CapCut. So it's very easy. Whereas level 3 or level 4, they would want to create like fancy animations, and it's, the tasks are more involved. It needs multiple applications and advanced skills. So I have an example of each and every one of these. You can grab this doc in the link below to kind of see what I'm talking about. The duration is pretty self-explanatory. So that's how you would create the creative point matrix system. If you want to do it yourself, look at past tasks, rank them based on difficulty, rank them into 5 categories, and then base them off duration. And then that's how you would create bonuses based on that. Okay. So in terms of management ratings, again, this differs from client to client. So for me personally, it's every week I ask my clients on feedback on ratings of how the video editor did in the past week. So it's very easy for me to kind of like make this because it comes from the client directly. But if you also have other performance stuff for video editors or creatives, like for example, CTR percentage or, conversion rates, which I don't think you should do because, conversion is not really the video editor's responsibility, but you can put anything here. Basically, you would want to make sure that they're also given some props on the quality of work that they do. So we don't only want output, we want quality to go along with the output. I'm going to make myself bigger here. And the rating points, for me, this is how I structure them: 0 to 6.9, so 0 points. If they get 7 to 7.9, they get 50 points. 8.8.9 ratings, they get 150 points. 9 to 9.4 ratings, they get 200, etc., etc. So you can see this pushes them to receive the best rating possible and make the videos not only, a lot of videos, but also of high quality. And then the last one is SOP adherence. So you can kind of tie these bonuses to make sure they also run your SOPs. This is a creative way I came up with it myself. So this will make sure that they will lose the points they earn if they don't adhere to the SOPs. So forgetting to check in, not uploading master file, incorrect naming conventions, can't be contacted. So the amount of minuses, this is very subjective. So it just is based on what you think the most important SOP is. The more important the SOP is, then the more deductions you would need to threaten them with, right? For example, this one, can't be contacted during working hours. This is fatal. If my client wasn't replied in 2 hours during during normal working hours and they weren't replied, then I would be really mad. That's why this is 100 points. Missing deadlines, big thing, 100 points. For example, this one, not updating the correct task statuses, in ClickUp, project management tool I use, they have task statuses. And then, if they don't update them correctly, it's not a fatal thing, but it's also very inconvenient for the client to see. And then it's not good for the rest of the editors or the project manager to kind of like fix it. So there's still some deductions, but not as big, right? Like incorrect naming conventions, etc., etc. So I set a target for 1,000 points. The weight, up to you. You can adjust it based on output, on performance, whatever you want. And then if they do not reach 1,000 points, that means they would either lack in the amount of work they did, or they did do a lot of work, but the rating was shit, which means the deliverables were not good, right? And if this happens, the project manager would hold a one-on-one meeting and, and fix it. Right? There are 3 things that will happen to your employees. 1, they'll try and get as many videos and designs as done as possible. They do their best to maintain quality because they want to keep the ratings high, and they'll adhere to SOPs because they don't want to deduct or want to lose the points that they've earned. So they work so hard for. So that's how you create a bonus system. This works really, really well. Actually, I'm going to give you a testimonial so that you would want to implement this. So this is my friend Marco, but he introduced the creative point system, and this is what his PM had to say. The PM said the editors have been working faster with more thoughtful clip styling and selection. So he runs a TikTok agency. I also think they're more encouraged as well. So bonus system, really important. You need to create one for your remote employees. Now you know everything about hiring and getting the right people to help you scale your operations. Scaling effectively while saving 70% in staffing costs. Now, if you already have a remote team and you want to double their productivity, consider watching these videos.